Good evening, everybody. Hello, everybody. 194 people here to invest in themselves. Amazing State of Sales East. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're super excited to have you all here and joining us and talking with us tonight. Why don't we start with our introductions? Jeremey, Donovan, you want to kick us off with like a brief introduction of yourself, what you do, and maybe a fun fact about yourself?
Oh, sure. We didn't even prep that one. So
Sorry.
no worries. So I am Jeremey. I am Senior Vice President of Sales Strategy and Operations at Salesloft. And a fun fact about me. How about this? As I am unable to do my favorite hobby right now, which is archery. So there's my fun fact.
Archery. All right.
Archery. You have a
Robin Hood.
You couldn't figure out the archery range?
No, it's the parks are closed. I can't do it.
That's awesome. Cool. Kata.
Hi everyone. So my name is Kata Nyitrai. I already had some networking session where people struggled with pronouncing my name. So I'm the global head of business development of Meero, which is a French startup. Prior to that, actually, I was working with these guys here at Aircall as a sales manager. And fun fact about me, I think it's already funny enough that I was late from the session because I didn't participate, and I'm supposed to be very tech savvy.
So we forgive you, Kata, and you. For those that are really looking forward to the SDR session, Kata built out pretty much the entire SDR program at Aircall. At its get-go. So good for you. We're excited to have you on the panel tonight. Morgan J. Ingram.
The man, the myth, the legend.
So fired up, dude. You need to do all my introductions. Just move in. You gotta get off. Sorry, Collin.
In a world.
Morgan Ingram with JB Sales, Director of Sales Execution, and also host of the SDR Chronicles. And my fun fact is the first country I ever went to was India. So just imagine that, like, first country ever was India. So that was, as you all can imagine, the biggest culture shock of all time.
I mean, that's pretty awesome, though.
Yeah, it was an incredible experience.
Last night, we forgot the next person, but we won't forget him tonight. Collin,
Bryan skipped right over me last night.
You know what? It's not like he's my boss. It was fine.
The whole time, everyone's introing themselves. I'm writing down what I'm going to say. And then it gets to my point, and he's like, all right, let's get started. And I'm just like, what happened there? Anyhow, I am Collin, Cadmus, Vice President of Sales at Aircall. Fun fact about me. For those who have ever seen the movie A Christmas Story, you remember a scene where a young boy got triple dog dared to stick his tongue to a pole. And in the blizzard of '97 in New Jersey, I had asked my mom, is that real? And she was ignoring her child and said, no, everything in Hollywood's fake. And I wanted to put that to the test. Nonetheless, long story short, I stuck my tongue to a basketball pole, and yes, it gets stuck.
I thought that the story is going to end that you were the boy.
No, I wasn't the boy, but yes, there's a fun fact about me. And I didn't eat ice pops for a good 5 years after that, or anything cold for that matter.
Wow. And I'm
nothing to do with sales. Keeping it on topic tonight.
Yeah. I'm Bryan Elsesser. I'm the Senior Director of Sales Development at Aircall. A little fun fact about me. Let's see. I am a volunteer firefighter on Long Island, father of 3 boys, and part-time Aircall employee, as Collin likes to say. That's his favorite. That's his joke. And there you go.
Bryan, yeah, I mean, I can introduce you better than you.
If you skip him again, you'll be former Aircall employee.
Listen, I'll give you the real Bryan introduction, all right? Bryan is a father of 3, okay? He is a volunteer firefighter. He is an opera singer. He is a real estate agent. And on his free time, he comes to Aircall.
That's right. Just on my free time, though.
and he can sing in French, in Italian, in German. You would be surprised.
YouTube Bryan Elsesser opera, and you can listen to it for yourself.
incredible.
Make sure you spell Bryan with a Y though, otherwise you're gonna get like lectures on psychology by another guy. It's not what you want.
It's YouTube,
All right,
so without
so,
glasses.
rock and roll. Welcome everyone. We're gonna get started right away here and kind of launch in simply because of time constraint. We want to get rocking. So, all right. First and foremost, first question. Ladies and gentlemen of the panel, we have a lot of industries being affected by COVID right now. Across the board, industries are being affected. And I think outside of some of maybe the seemingly obvious things that people have been speaking about on LinkedIn, and even the topics that have been trending around remote work or about empathy or whatever it might be, I'm curious to hear your insight around what maybe people might not be talking about. What hasn't been spoken about yet, but maybe is top of mind for you?
I think I've seen a little bit of it, but not enough. Like morning routines. Like people are talking about like, hey, work from home tips and like lead with empathy. And we know that, but like, what's your morning routine? And then how is that morning routine trickling into your day? Because right now, a lot of people are figuring out, what do I do with my commute time? So now that's just like, hey, I'm just like meetings, hanging out, etc. I think a lot of people are talking about the psychology and the breakdown of what a morning routine does, because we're so used to going in the office. And so our home environments now lead into this anchoring effect where we're seeing it as a place of rest instead of as a place of work. And we're not having that morning routine that gravitates us towards in a positive direction. So, I mean, those are a couple of things you could do, right? Writing down what you're grateful for, writing down what your goals are, making sure that you're visualizing what your day is going to look like. I think a lot of people just aren't talking about what that morning routine should look like so that you can be successful throughout the day.
I got to break it. Morgan, I agree with you. Morning routine for sure. I have not seen a thing on it really. It's been like the lesser known talk track, but we have to pause there because, ladies and gentlemen, Jim Donovan.
Hey, you guys hear me?
He made it.
Jim, you're not off the hook. You have to give a brief intro of yourself and a fun fact.
Okay. Jim Donovan, I'm the VP of Global Sales for PandaDoc. And a fun fact about me, I was randomly in the World Trade Center on September 11th when the first plane crashed.
Whoa.
Wow.
But I survived the attack on the World Trade Center. So that's a fun fact about me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's intense.
Yeah.
I feel like you
Present.
can't stop there. I need to know a little bit more about that.
We need
We're
to be drinking for me to tell the full story. But
Yeah.
September 11th, the morning of, I was getting my shoe shined when the first plane hit.
Wow. Well, thankful you're here and thankful that you're with us today.
God bless.
All right. So we're talking a little bit about topics that have not been spoken about that are top of mind with the COVID crisis. There's been so much that's happened. Morgan kicked us off with a little bit around morning routine, how that's something that's just not been really hammered into. Does anyone else have something that they think really has been top of mind for them, but maybe not really been shared?
I'll add to the morning routine thing because it's funny you say that because I realized that I have molded a new morning routine. I didn't really think about it, but I feel like I have a morning now that I always wished I had, where I actually wake up and make my bed and like tidy up the place.
Yeah.
Like I have time for that, and I do that because I have to be here all day, and I want to have everything nice. And so, yeah, I mean, there's more to the routine than that, but I've made sure that I actually do that every day now, which is nice.
I think on the time thing, I was actually talking to one of the VP of Enterprise Sales over at Seismic earlier today, and she was observing that executives have a lot more time right now, right? There's no more morning commute, there's no more evening commute, so I think there was like a few week period where people were just getting themselves settled and into a routine, and at this point, we've definitely been finding that it's weirdly easier to reach people, and they're a little bit more friendly when they actually answer, because when you've been socially distancing yourself, you're craving some human interaction, so you're less likely to be I should say more likely to take a cold call, which is a little counterintuitive, but I think we're starting to see the other side of that.
Well, so let's think of it this way, right? Like we've had to make a lot of changes in a short amount of time, which outside of just morning routines, we've had to change pretty much everything that we're doing, including our daily metrics, including how we're getting those metrics. Like we've had to look at what is it that we're doing and how are we getting there. And I think one of the questions that I wonder is, Has there been some sort of complacency that's been rattled?
Yes, personally, I feel a new sense of urgency, almost that this has somehow been a gift that we all have to adjust our operating. And I like what Jeremey was saying earlier. It's like for months leading up to now, I've been dealing with call avoidance as an issue, right? How do we get more people to connect? Now all of a sudden we're connecting and we're almost surprised that we're getting folks on the phone, but now we have to adjust our script, right? You can't go right into it. You need to build a little bit more rapport and make sure you're not offending anybody by trying to sell through. So it's really a unique and challenging time, but I'm also pumped about it because I've been telling my sales team, like, guys, we are surviving selling through a global pandemic. Like, when you survive this, it reminds me of 9/11, right? It's sort of catastrophic, and we're living through it. So to me, it's emboldening. It's an opportunity to really kind of dial down and say, this is a moment in your career that when you get through it, you're kind of going to be able to get through anything.
Yeah, I want to touch on Jim's point because this is incredibly important for all of you that are SDR, BDRs, and AEs. And if you are an SDR, BDR, AE, just real quick in this chat, just put a 1 because we're directly talking to you right now. If you're like, all right, like a lot,
there's a lot of one.
Yeah, this is for you guys right now. Like, if you don't get anything else out of today, what Jim just said was one of the most important things, because if you're able to prospect, sell, maybe if we have customer success here, cross-sell, upsell, leaders. If you can get through this, your resume becomes untouchable because someone's gonna be like, hey, what are you about? Oh yeah, I sold through a pandemic. Cool, you're hired. Like it's really that simple of a conversation. Like this is never gonna happen for the next hundreds of years. So if you can buckle down, like I'm hoping thousands, maybe never, right? So just based on the history, right? But the whole thing is like, this may never happen again, right? And that's what we're hoping on. Yeah. So if that's the fact and you can get through this now, that mental and that creativity and that innovation you have will move you forward in a whole new level that you've never seen. And so I just want you guys to walk away with that.
I think there's also something that's just sort of really obvious here right now that's happening in this moment. There are 205 people pumped into this event right now, listening to this chat going on. They're here. Like, I love that. I think that's 206 people now that are investing in themselves that maybe wouldn't be at 5:00 Eastern on a Thursday night. And I don't know. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. By the way, I was skeptical, that so many people would join, but on the context of investing in yourselves, with all this extra time besides prospecting and engaging your clients and working on that, people have this incredible opportunity to use that extra time to learn a new skill, like whatever it is. I said to one of my kids last night, hey, I'll learn something with you. What do you want to learn? And I was hoping he would choose like Python programming. He chose philosophy, so we may be learning our going our separate ways on learning. But if you're an SDR, salesperson, AE, sales leader, like whatever it is, with that extra time, maybe cut 1 hour of Netflix out of the schedule and spend that hour doing an open course on Coursera or, Harvard X or whatever those things are. Like, just go do that. Yeah, someone said in the chat, scale up.
And actually, like, I wanted to say something like the training. I think it's one of the most important thing that at this time you can do, because, for instance, like what we're doing Meero now, at Meero now, that we're rolling out the training program for the entire sales team, so not just for the BDRs. At this time, and the fact that for us actually the business quite slowed down. So because, for instance, one of our biggest industries is travel. So obviously we know that travel is unfortunately maybe gonna stay like this for the next 6 to 12 months. But the idea is that we can really do like intense training, and we can at least until engage and build relationships, so we can have like this big wide backlog of companies that after we can get back to. And so at least like the whole pandemic is not prolonged, and at least we can get back to as beasts and in general even more ready than ever. So let's try to look at this way that can at least we can use this time to be better.
It's a really good transition, Kata. So I'm curious to the panel here, with the collective businesses across everybody what we have, when we have PandaDoc, we have Meero and Salesloft. and even training with Jay Barrows. I'm curious, like, what do we have in terms of maybe emerging markets and or even new ICPs that were unexpected and now are coming in, like new customers we never even thought were sold to before? Anybody?
Yeah, we're actually getting an influx of education right now, which, we never would have seen that the entire education system would be moving to the home for a foreseeable future. But there needs to be a lot of signatures and happening of parents back and forth with plans. And so it's actually opened up a brand new, a whole new vertical for us. So it's been really exciting from that perspective.
It's interesting you say education. It's the same for us at Aircall. The top two right now, or kind of top three, there's health and wellness, which has been big. Education and government are big as well. And what's to the same thing is we would have never sold to them under any other circumstance. Health and wellness, yes, we were always selling to them, but government and education, forget about it. Government, you have to be an approved vendor. You have to go through a whole process. And right now, all of those constraints are waived. So of course, there's the risk of what happens after, but we're going all in and experimenting with it.
Yeah, I think it is, as I mentioned, it's the industries you'd expect right now, right? Which is with those. The other one you didn't mention is transportation logistics. Amazing boom going on in that market as well. We don't really sell to the paper and packaging world, but those who do are also experiencing that humongous boom. Think of not just the toilet paper, but all the cardboard boxes, right? As everything's being shipped now. And it was recycling day yesterday, and it was just like mountains and mountains of cardboard.
Well, it's funny too, I'm seeing in the chat, and I wanted to call this out earlier because I think, Morgan, you were touching on this or we were talking about morning routines. One thing, I don't know if everybody's experiencing this, my day is just longer. Like, I'm working more than I've ever worked. I think I'm partially to get through it, right? Just keep my head down and control what I can control. But also, like, we're all in it. So when people want to connect, I want to connect because it's sort of the moment, So I don't feel like I'm taking advantage of it, but I'm leaning in for sure.
Yeah, and it's kind of like you never turn it off, right? I noticed that too. When we said we're working from home, I'm like, oh, this is great, right? I'll enjoy this for a little while. But I'm like, oh man, like I get out of bed, I do my tidy up the apartment thing, get ready, eat a little yogurt, and then sit down. And then it's like 8 o'clock, and I'm like, wait, like, what's next? Right? Like, you don't leave it. And then you're like, I need to eat. I haven't eaten all day. And you eat, and then before you know, like, your desk is still on, and you're back at the desk, and you're like, it's time to
I'm not even kidding. I take a walk around my block just to get some fresh air first thing in the morning. One of the best tips I got from somebody was don't forget to shower, because for the first time, shower.
Yeah, nobody can smell you over Zoom.
I'm writing that down as one of the quotes for this event. Don't forget to shower.
Takeaways.
Yes.
So, all right, I'm going to transition a little bit here. We've talked a lot about the current state. I want to go to future state for a little bit here. All right, so we're going to head into we're going in the future. All right, so what's next? What I mean by that is, like, we've heard things won't be the same, and everyone keeps saying this is like some weird omen that everyone wants to throw into the world. But I'm really curious how society not only affects our economy, but it's going to affect our sales methodology.
Yeah, I think everyone right now should maximize how to have conversations via video. Like, that should be the utmost of importance. Like, go find a course on it, go to YouTube, go talk to someone. And the reason I'm saying that is because you have to think about the financials of having an office. So there's a lot, 6, 7, 8 different offices, and the CFOs and VPs of finance and the controllers are looking at the financials and be like, wait, we're just as productive while everyone's working from home. And now our overhead, based on all our financials with these offices, we can get rid of them. So now you're going to see a lot of remote offerings, a lot of people, maybe some field sales reps in here. It may be where you do way more Zooms than you are meeting someone in person now. So this is just a great time to maximize on how are you selling virtually and how are you interacting with people throughout this process. Because my personal belief is that companies are going to look at the financials, see the uptick in production, and say, hey, look, we have 6 locations. We're going to have 1 HQ. We're We're going to get rid of the 5 other offices. We're going to send everyone else to WeWorks, if that, and that's going to be our workforce moving forward. And so if you're not able to communicate via video, or if you don't have some type of virtual offering and your solution can pivot to that, now is the time to pay very close attention on how to go about on that right now.
Yeah, I can add to that, because the note that I had is and it ties into what we were talking about. There's a new adoption of technology, right? People who would have been the last adopters have now been smacked in the face and forced to start doing things that they would have never done, right? And it's happening across all age groups. My niece, who's 4 years old, can use her FaceTime and Facebook Messenger like you could have never imagined, because it's the only way that she can keep annoying Uncle Collin all day long now. And it goes all the way up the charts, right? So we were talking about healthcare last night, and we were talking about telemedicine with Kevin Dorsey. And I used to sell at Doctor.com. We sold a very similar product to Patient Pop, which was marketing solutions for doctors to help bring new patients into their practice, right? To help them acquire new patients. And think about what happened to that industry overnight, because the patients cannot come to see them anymore. And so both of those businesses immediately pivoted to telemedicine, which 3 weeks ago was the worst SaaS business to be in, because you could not convince doctors. Everyone thought 10 years ago, by the way, telemedicine is going to be the biggest thing. A lot of VC money went into it and very, very little success. Lots of failure because you couldn't get the doctors to do it. Now they're forced to do it, and it's going to change healthcare forever. And it's just one example.
Maybe being the oldest person on the Zoom by it looks like some years.
No, I'm 34. You must be 20.
Exactly. I mean, this will be my third, I guess, major disruption, right? The telecom boost. If you count, there was a late 90s Asian financial crisis that no one remembers either, so I can maybe count that one too. And like things change, but they change gradually. I mean, I think I probably don't have as radical a view as Morgan has, but what I have noticed over the course of my career is that I think of this threshold about what can be sold remotely and over the phone. And when I started my career, like anything over, that was in the late 90s, anything over 20K, you had to go face-to-face, period. You just couldn't do it otherwise. But under 20K, you could use inside sales. Today, pre-COVID, I would say 60, 80 maybe. But once you got over the 100K mark, you pretty much were face-to-face. I think that what this may accelerate is like that threshold, that maybe we broach the 100K remote threshold. And that changes the economics of the business, because you can get a lot more productivity. I mean, that's why we have inside sales, is you can get a lot more productivity out of inside sales if you don't have to hop on airplanes all the time.
I totally agree, Jeremy. By the way, great last name.
I know, great last name.
Maybe we are.
I said earlier in the chat, we're just missing Ray.
Yes, true. Jim and I are not brothers. We've never met, actually.
I couldn't agree more, though. I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, and very similar question, like, what do we think is the biggest change here? And I said, I'm not trying to be bullish on this, but I feel like this may mark the death of outside sales, not the whole death or the true death, but I think the shift has been moving towards inside sales since about 98, 99 anyway. And I agree with you, Jeremy. I think this is just going to shove the majority of operations into inside sales and more qualified, to Morgan's point, remote inside sales. So it's going to be fascinating.
It's really interesting you bring that up, because I kind of said that last night. And this morning I saw an Instagram video of, I think, Brad Lee talking to an outside salesperson. And he said the same thing. He said, you guys must be screwed. You can't knock on doors right now. This guy sells pest control or something or other. And he says, business is booming for us because people are answering the door. And I'm like, wow, maybe it's different. But I do tend to agree with you. Field sales is dying anyway. And when we go back to normal, people are not going to be answering the door like they are. So maybe that's a temporary influx.
Literally door-to-door salesperson.
Oh yeah, knocking 200 houses.
I was thinking knocking on the
yes.
virtual door and people were answering, but
oh no, 200 houses a day, and we did it at Doctor.com. We did it at doctor.com. Our reps in New York, I had a field sales team there. They had to hit 20 doctors' offices in a day. Good ones would hit 100. They'd find a big building and hit them all. But I had to kill that team after the first quarter because my inside sales team was destroying them.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm actually curious from your point of view in terms of the EU. You're over there in a whole different maybe landscape and environment of this whole thing. How is it changing?
Yeah,
on your end?
so in general, I think I just wanted to join on this conversation that in Europe, I think most of the companies, they don't really like, even startups, they don't really like home office. Because I think maybe they think that people wouldn't be productive, and obviously in startup everybody's working late hours in general. So I think it's definitely a good shift. And to be honest with you, even at Meero, it was not really a common thing to work from home. So honestly, for me, that was one of the biggest advantage that I could really push to the BDRs. If you can really present right now that you can work and actually that we can see your activities, and thanks to Aircall, thanks to Salesloft, we can really track them. So it's actually a good time to really show that you can be autonomous and you're not that reliant in general. But when it comes to the bigger landscape, obviously we right now in Europe a bit further than you, because the pandemic started 2-3 weeks after in the US. So we still see that businesses are very slow. So
yeah.
So we're just hoping for the best.
Well,
The other thing, yeah.
Jeremy,
The other thing
Go
I was
ahead,
going to
go
add is people who are already in the workforce. I think the transition to remote is a straightforward thing. But if you're either entering the workforce either as a new college grad, or if you're a parent returning to work after taking time off to take care of your kid, what have you, that's one of the big reasons we have offices, is so that people can get trained and learn and ramp from their peers. I would be naive to say that the world will always be a certain way, but I think that's part of, there is a productivity benefit to organizations to do that. So at least at some scale, there's value in that.
Yeah, we talked a bit about that last night with KD, and we were saying, I think in the future, what it probably looks like is a split, right? Rather than being all one or all the other. You can build out a team, but you're going to fly them into the headquarters for a month for boot camp, right? And then maybe you can have those 20 SDRs remote or something. But there's visits to the headquarters, I think, frequently, because I couldn't imagine. We were talking about that last night. Couldn't imagine onboarding a group of folks under these conditions. And we had someone, Caitlin from Docero yesterday, in our breakout session, who had just hired about 20 people right before this happened, entry level, straight out of college. And she's like, what do I do? And that's a tough spot to be in.
One quick tip just for any of us that are trying to manage through this that we've tried to employ is we're doing daily Zoom check-ins at the end of each day. They're only maybe 15 or 30 minutes, and they're purely optional, but it's that way to sort of recreate that connected feeling, even for a little bit. We're actually doing role plays on those calls. We're having pricing conversations. So it's actually, I'm enjoying it. It hasn't been awful. It's been actually kind of nice. So.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Jeremy, I just for sake of time, want to add one other question here. I know that you're our in-house statistician today, so I'm curious around something. I think there's a lot of sales motions that we're going to market with, right? And I know that Salesloft manages to take a look at all those motions and then manage their effectiveness and rather measure their effectiveness. I'm curious around, do you foresee any sales motions throughout this crisis that are going to possibly go obsolete?
Wow, that's a big question. I'm just going to try to think about, right, what are the channels that we use to engage with people, right? We use email, which doesn't feel like that's going away. We use social, doesn't feel like that's going away. We use, phone. At first, right, throwing some stats out there, in the first kind of 2-3 weeks, we were looking at connect rates, and connect rates in the first 2-3 weeks were down 13%. But the connect rates have kind of restabilized, and people have routed their phone systems, in proper ways. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm the old curmudgeon who doesn't think things are going to change much. But yeah, I don't really think things are going to change, other than the thing we talked about earlier, which is that like you can get away with remote selling at much bigger price points. The one thing that I wonder if it might change is like, I used to work in a Fortune 1000 company, and when someone would come sell to us, they would come in with like the sales manager, the AE, a sales engineer, and I don't know, sometimes a bonus fourth executive or something like that, senior exec, whatever it happened to be. And then we in our room would have our 6 to 10 people. Like those 10-person meetings, maybe those things go by the wayside. I think that's like, yeah, maybe that's what changes there.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. I'm curious. So like, then it begs the question, right? Like, and I for one think that when you have such major, I don't know, shifts, right? Like when I think of a shift, I think of like people aren't going into cities and commuting in and out. I think of New York City. Like I even know what the train stations are like on Long Island, and they get nutty trying to get in and out every single day. And there's a lot less people going in and out, which means a lot less people, a lot less foot traffic, a lot less restaurant traffic. And I think about if we're in some sort of mixed remote work environment, it provides an opportunity in the economy for maybe new emergers and maybe brand new companies to take hold or progress. Curious to the panel, any ideas for new disruptors that could potentially poise themselves or disrupt the segment?
I mean, I think you're seeing it already, right? A lot of it is just pivoting today. Like, pizzerias are now buying flash freezers and selling frozen pizza. They're making it more convenient to get contactless delivery. The marketing that I called it in my head, and I was waiting for. I said, we're going to start seeing restaurants just focusing on their cleanliness and how they're going to avoid germs in your food, and it's all over TV now. Like that's the message, right? And all of those changes are not going to just go away. I think I'm a self-diagnosed germaphobe, always have been. Bryan knows it. If I touch your hand, I'm definitely not touching my face until it's sanitized. No offense, not personal. It's just the way I am. And I'm very cautious about what I touch. And so for me, I'm like, dang, you guys starting to feel the way, all right, like I've been doing this for a long time. And so anyway, I think the social norms of that are going to change, right? And you saw this in Asia lifetimes ago with the masks, and there were triggers that caused that stuff to happen. And I think all of that creates opportunity for business, right? In one way or another. I don't know specifically what they are. I'll be thinking a lot about it. We're certainly using one right now, the tool Hopin that we're on right now. These guys probably projected 20% of what they're going to end up doing this year, right? Because every event just got moved virtual, and they're going to kill it now. So
that's actually,
there's a lot to come.
That's another great point too, right? Is all these events, all that event money that was planned for this year that's now just gone, right? And the same thing with all this space money, it can be repurposed to Jeremy's point on training, right? We can skill everybody up if we reinvest that way. One thing that's interesting that we've done is we've surveyed everybody about going remote. And I want to, Kata, to your point, our teams in Belarus and Minsk, only 30% would like to be remote, whereas here in Florida, approximately 70% would like to be remote, right? So there probably is a hybrid solution that's a little bit more global than we realize, which is, a space where people can go if they want to be in an office, but they don't have a desk there. They don't actually have an office there. It's like hoteling, globally. So it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I see a couple of the same questions coming up in the chat, and so I'm gonna pivot here for a second to a question. It seems to keep coming up. Someone mentioned earlier that in Europe there seems to be a lack of trust. Someone said a minute ago, why did it take for a pandemic for companies to test out the work remote environment? I'm curious, has there been an element of trust that's been missing across leadership or even company-wide?
I don't think it's trust. I think it's comfort zone.
Exactly. I think a lot of people, when they think about hey, I gotta go lead my team, or like you have new reps, you're like, man, I gotta look at them physically. They gotta be there. I gotta hear the calls, etc. And it just comes down to a lot of things where coaching is a big part of that. Where sometimes a frontline manager might not be getting the coaching to coach their reps, so they don't know how to navigate those conversations by proactively listening to calls and proactively looking at emails that are being sent out, etc. So if the managers understand how to coach, then going virtual is not that big of a deal. However, if the manager only knows how to manage, then it becomes a big deal. And because there's such a big gap with frontline managers on how to coach, that's the problem. Because, I talk to a lot of people that are enablement, and I ask them, hey, what's like a number one thing that you just keep seeing? It's, hey, look, my frontline managers don't know how to coach. And if you ask people, most leaders, and you ask them, how many managers do you feel like can are true coaches? The answer normally is around 10 to 20%, which is leading to a lot of people trying to figure out, how do I get through this? It's because the coaching skills aren't there.
Wow. So in essence, you think that there's an element of some leaders aren't meant for this environment.
Yeah. I mean, but here's the thing. Most sales reps aren't ready for this environment.
Jim's nodding his head. I love that. Bottom corner going like this.
I think Jeremey's being polite when he's acknowledging himself as the oldest person, but I don't think he's alone. I'm in my 40s, and I almost arguably leading up to this should be excited about the opportunity to work remote. The first few weeks, it's kind of nice, but to Morgan's point, there's a sort of a connectivity element of looking somebody in the eye and, dare I say, because I know it's illegal, shaking their hand, and sometimes hugging them, right? I mean, talking about that coaching, right? I have
the elbows.
Reps that sometimes you just, you need to give them a hug and say, it's going to be all right, get through this rejection. But to me, this challenge is a fun one. I wasn't planning on it, in February, January. I didn't know this was going to happen, but isn't that more exciting that, as awful as it is, that we're all being tried, true, and tested by something that will fundamentally change the outcome for everybody. So.
Yeah.
It is. And you're right. It is weird to say it, right? But like, this is, from a business standpoint, been a very exciting challenge to navigate, and I think we have to see it that way, right? If you don't see something like this as an opportunity to learn, then you're just going to end up depressing yourself. So take advantage of it, right? And it'll be a bullet on your resume.
I know Kata was about to weigh in, so I got to hear the European perspective on that one.
Yeah, the European perspective. Actually, I forgot honestly what I wanted to say, but now what we're doing right now is that we also, and personally me as well, I'm going to go out there and start the prospect again, just a little bit, because I think, first of all, for me, when I joined Meero, I already joined as a manager, so I never actually sold Meero. And it was always in my mind that, okay, obviously in the beginning I ramped up, there were so many things to do. And then after I was like, okay, no, I'm just going to do like 1 week, just to get out there and then, and to really try to sell Meero. But there was always something to do, and I never ended up doing it. And so it's funny that you were saying this coaching thing, because actually we also started, a couple of months ago, just on the BDR side, every week there was one day when I asked everyone to, stop everything, cancel every meeting, and then you really have to be out there and call with the BDRs, and also have to actively listen in and actually give live feedbacks. But now all the managers are gonna also start prospecting. So for instance, I'm also gonna start probably next week for some European countries. And I think it's a very great time to do so, because obviously we need the manpower as well, and also just to really understand like firsthand what's happening on the market, and then understand after how we can adapt to it, and to really change our strategy in general, because it's easy to say sometimes, but it's I think it's important to see it really firsthand.
That's a really, really great point. I think for anyone in leadership right now, and we should be doing this in cycles anyway, right? But this is a time I've definitely been getting more involved talking to clients. Like, you have to hear the pulse of it. That's an excellent point. For anyone in the audience who's in leadership right now, if you're not talking to customers, just block your calendar off for the next week.
Round table discussion.
Speaking, so this is a this is a really great time to make that transition because it actually is a natural transition. Here's what's coming up. So first and foremost, Aircall and Zendesk, we are giving out a $25 gift card, 12 of them, in fact, for this event. You should be taking a little LinkedIn message to LinkedIn, hashtagging State of Sales, tagging Aircall and Zendesk. And if you can do all that, maybe even include a picture, and you could be put in the running for a dozen $25 Amazon gift cards. So go do that. Second, next up, we have a 15-minute little break. You'll be able to speed network. You'll be able to go visit the expo and talk to someone live about Zendesk Sell or Aircall. You can go do that. And in 15 minutes from now, so that would be 6:15 Eastern, you're going to go choose a panel discussion. I want to do a brief overview here. We have Collin and Jim. You guys are doing the leadership corner. All right. We have Jeremey and Kata. They're going to do outbound strategy and SDRs. And then mindset and positivity with myself and Morgan J. Ingram. Morgan, I'm going to be your boy, man. Don't worry.
You got me, man.
That's going to be my new gig, all right? So we're in that final moment, that final section. We got 2 questions for the panel here, and then we're going to send everyone, on their way. But these are my favorite questions, okay? So we're going to start off with one that's broad, less mind. Actually, I'll give you the mind one, all right? I'm going to look for a final thought from all of you. Not yet. That'll be the second question you're going to answer. But keep in the back of your head, I'm looking for a final thought. What is it that you want people to take away heading out into the future state of sales here? So think about that one. In the meantime, an easy one for all of you. Podcast, book, routine that they should go and check out. What is it that you do or are reading right now that everyone should go and do? Jim, I saw the biggest smile, so you're first.
Yeah,
He's ready.
This is an old one, but I've actually recently resurrected it due to what's going on. It's actually a book by Og Mandino called The Greatest Salesman in the World, and it actually talks about 300 days worth of enforcing 10 really good habits and behaviors for all salespeople. Right now felt like a great time to dust that one off, because I felt like I have probably 300 days ahead of me. So I recommend it.
Love it. We'll go around the horn. Well, I guess it's different on my screen than yours, but Collin, you're next on my screen.
Podcasts. You got to listen to this podcast. It's called Hey Salespeople. There's an excellent episode on there. It was unscripted. I believe it was titled, whoever came up with that title, by the way, was brilliant. It was an unscripted conversation about scripting your sales.
Oh, get out of here. You're fired.
No, I'll give the same recommendations I gave last night, and that was on the list. But I also included the Sales Leadership Podcast by Rob Jepson, the new Surf and Sales Podcast with Scott Leese and Richard Harris. Obviously, Morgan Jay's got his podcast. Shout out to Phil, who is an AE at Aircall, who just started a podcast that has been awesome. It's called The Outbound Movement. So check that out. I think I'm forgetting one right now that I threw in there last night, but favorite book, I always go Extreme Ownership. I know everyone's probably read it by now, but still, if you haven't, now's a great time to do it while you are managing yourself every single day.
Yes. Morgan J.
So in terms of book, I think right now is a time where we should be hyper-focused on the questions that we ask so we can get the real answers to close on those. And so one book I'm reading right now is called Question-Based Selling. So if you haven't checked, I got the 2 thumbs up from Jeremy. That means I have a great recommendation here. So you guys should definitely check it out. So Question-Based Selling is something I've done deep research on, taking notes, and it fundamentally has been changing the way I'm doing things right now. And also on top of that as well, this is a video resource. So Masterclass. And I've been listening to Chris Voss's Masterclass.
Is it good? I want to do it.
It is one of the best online video courses that I've ever watched, and immediate results if you use it the right way. Mirroring and labeling easily can change your entire conversations and also your process. And then in terms of podcasts, I mean, they've already been mentioned. Obviously, we have Hey Salespeople here. You have the Outbound Movement, right? But one thing I want to definitely bring to the table here is Impact Theory by Tom Bilyeu. If you haven't checked that out, It's a great podcast. And what the podcast is about is stories of people from different industries on their mindset, but also how they overcame adversity. And there's no better time to listen to people who've come over adversity. And I'd highly encourage you guys to check it out because it's been helpful for me.
Jeremey, you're next on my list, but you also can take this time too if you want to do a quick plug of a new book. I just saw it came out by under your name, so I'd love to.
I can't self promote, so I won't do it. But I'm a book a week kind of person, so I've got so many, but I'll throw a few out there in just different genres. So from sales, Morgan stole mine. I think question-based selling is amazing. So if I got to come up with another sales one, it's the Sales Manager Survival Guide. It reads like a textbook, but it is like it is if and when you get into sales management, or if you're a sales manager right now, there is like nothing like that book out there. It is so comprehensive. Outside of like direct sales books in the nonfiction world, I really love the book Deep Work by Cal Newport, and really anything Cal Newport writes, I think is worth reading. So Good They Can't Ignore You is also amazing. And that's really just about focus. And there are a lot of good books on focus, but Cal's just insanely great writer. I'll give you two more. One is a book on critical thinking. It's probably the best, most accessible critical thinking book I can think of, called Decisive by Chip and Dan Heath. And then I'll give you one last one, although my last one is fiction, which is, if you haven't read Dune, you got to read Dune. It's sci-fi.
Okay. Check it out.
Jeremey, also the author of Leading Sales Development, The Art and Science of Building Exceptional Teams. He co-authored that with Aaliyah Hamison, who is just another exceptional leader.
Alpha Sense, right?
What's that?
Aaliyah's at Alpha Sense.
She is, yeah. Oh, I forgot. Sorry, I got to sneak one more in, which is watch everything Beck Holland does. Like, read everything she writes. Watch every video she puts out there. She's the diggitiest dog.
Love it. And Kata.
Yeah, so I'm gonna definitely, I have to say Beck Holland as well, because she's amazing, and actually now that personalization is more important than ever, I think it's definitely a must watch for everyone. And actually now I'm reading the Challenger Customer. So it's I think it's I personally like it better than the Challenger Sales. For me, it's why it's important, because right now, as I mentioned before, we're building out the sales academy in Meero. And before, I was just focusing on the BDR part, but now I'm also helping to build out the program for closing and negotiation. And I think for enterprise sales, it's a really good book to really show how to sell in a way that you're targeting several stakeholders. So I think it's definitely a must-read as well.
Love it. I'm going to only add one to this list, and that's because so many people brought up tonight about how they're just like, how do I structure my day in this work in office environment? Go read The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. If you've not read it, I plugged it earlier. Go read it. Great book. Will help you get started, a jump start on your day. All right.
Bryan, can I throw in one quick question? Because we had a topic last night on books, and I'm curious to ask, so we have some more book enthusiasts here. KD and I brought up the topic of, do you read the books cover to cover? Do you skim? Do you take notes? How do you read them? And we both agreed we never read them cover to cover. We get too engrossed in finding cool details and taking notes, and then we probably come back to them, and at any given time, we're halfway through 20 books. I'm curious, Jeremey, more like, how do you guys read them?
Absolutely every word cover to cover. I take notes.
I expected that.
I highlight. Yes. Absolutely.
So I'm like Jerry. I read cover to cover. I have to internalize the book and really understand it. And then also as well, on some books, because some of the themes become repetitive, I taught myself how to speed read so I could get through I understand this part to get to the more tactical pieces. But yeah, I take a note. I mean, I got like my little notebook over here that I have when I read books. Like I'm prepared because the thing is that like there's
we have a book file here.
Yeah. No, I got a bookshelf, right? Like we can hang up here. But the whole thing,
I gotta tell you, KD had at least 50 books stacked behind him yesterday, though. Yeah. But that's because he doesn't go cover to cover.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, it's like accurate thought, right? And that's one thing that's in the law of success by Napoleon Hill. It's like accurate thought, like taking the things that you have and accurately doing them with that thought and executing on them. Because you can read a book and be like, oh, that sounds great. But if you don't do them, it is what it is.
Yeah.
We're a little over on time, so that we're going to just go right into that last question quick. That final thought, that big takeaway for the audience. I'll let whoever wants to kick it off go first.
I'll go. I think, and I said it last night, but maybe we'll word it better tonight. It's no matter what's going on in your life right now, or business, personal, and this applies to all times, but specifically apply it to now. Make your number one mission to come out of this better in whatever way possible. If you get laid off, if you can't hit your quota, if you get sick, whatever it is, don't let it beat you down and find a way to level it up. And I said last night, I thought, a fantastic quote. I said, I've never seen a great person lose their job and not move on to do something better. And I stand by that. I thought about it a lot last night. I have never seen a great person lose their job and not move on to do something better. And I think it's because great people, and this isn't just about losing your job. It's great people. They take the downfalls in life and they let them push them to the next level. And so this is a great moment in life to be thinking like that.
Yep. Yeah. Jim?
Yeah. So this too shall pass. Everyone's saying that right now. My quote or my thought would be, how do you want to be remembered, or what do you want to think about what you accomplished during this time when you look back on it 10 years from now? So knowing that this is going to pass, think intentionally about what you want to accomplish right now, because 6 months from now, 9 months from now, looking back, do you want to be thought of somebody that led through this or just survived it? And I think everybody here is committing to want to be a leader. So let's lead.
Yeah. Well said.
Kata, do you want to take next?
So I don't want to steal Collin's quote, but on the other hand, I think it's super important that we see that so many people get laid off or furloughed or technical unemployment or however we want to call it in different regions, and sometimes very good people that actually they're super talented and they should have not been at the first place. And I think it's definitely important that they don't give up and they have to just try to go through this situation and get the best out of it and have this positive mindset that in the end, if they really believe in themselves and they know that they can go through it, they will. And I think it's that's the most. I mean, it's a financial crisis, it's economical crisis, it's social crisis, it's health crisis. It's actually times that we never experienced before, and it's definitely tough for everyone. But to keep this positivity, it's really important.
Love it, Jeremey.
I got to go super tactical. Your network is your net worth. Connect with everybody you ever prospect, every client you ever sign, all 6 of us, everyone you meet. Connect with them on LinkedIn, and that will pay dividends for you for your entire career.
Amen. Morgan J.
All right, so I got a walk away quote for you guys. Binge growth, not Netflix.
Love it.
And to get granular there for you guys, this again, let's go back to what's happening. You can't go to the bar. I can't go to a music festival. Can't go to because I'm mad about it. Concerts, sports. You cannot go to them, and no one's pulling you to be like, hey, let's go out this weekend. That's not happening. So there's no better time to go buy the book that you've been meaning to buy. Go read that journal, that blog that you've been meaning to read. Start that YouTube channel, right? Start that podcast. Start streaming on Twitch. Go start on TikTok. I don't know what everyone's thing is here, but the thing is that this is the time to binge on your growth and upgrade yourself. And I'm 100% with Collin here. Everyone's goal should be coming out of this and looking at themselves as a different person, but in a better way.
Yeah. Morgan, are you dancing on TikTok, by the way? Can we find you there?
Hey, man, hey, that's a secret account. Don't tell them about it.
All right. Listen, everyone. So my last piece is, and I'll finish it off and we'll get out of here. But I think the big takeaway here that you're hearing across the board is lose the head trash. I think we all can agree that it's never been a bigger time for head trash. there's 3 things to keep in mind. You can, you will, you are. And whatever you finish that sentence with is the power that you're feeding your brain. This thing up here is what it eats. So eat it, so feed it well. This has been awesome. This has been State of Sales East. I can't thank you all enough, Jim, Collin, Morgan, Jeremey, Kata. This has been really great. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and joining us tonight. Please don't forget to give us a little review on this. You can do so on LinkedIn, #State of Sales. Thanks to Zendesk and Aircall. Everybody have a really great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so
Good
much,
night,
guys.
everyone.
Bye-bye.